Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Hi, good afternoon. Thanks for joining us, everyone. We just met with Region 1, so I'm feeling gratitude for my warmth, even though I have a big sweater on because learning, how their cold snap up there in the UP helped me be more grateful for the Santa Fe, very mild winter here. We're just waiting on people. We'll get started in a few minutes. Feel free to say hello to each other in the chat or just come off mute. So waiting on a few regions, but welcome everyone. I just saw Jane's email about the childcare back office webinar tomorrow. So we'll pop that in the chat at some point in case folks want to register while you're a captive audience here. But that's exciting and definitely a big, good crossover between the general work of the regional coalitions and the work we are talking about here today. So that's good. No shortage of fun ECIC related stuff today. So glad you're doing that, Sarah. Still waiting on a few folks. Great. Yeah, and for those of you who might be just logging in and miss Joan's chat, welcome, Liv. And I'm excited that you're on as the new regional or the program manager for Regional Childcare Coalitions. I was just telling folks I just got more caffeine because my brain is not quite there, even though it's 11 for me, not that early. So I don't know what my excuse is, but we could kick it out. If you don't, Joan, did you want to introduce Liv as part of this while folks get settled?
Yeah, great to see everybody. And just wanted to take a moment. Liv, do you want to go ahead? This is her second day, so we are giving her a full fire hose treatment here, as you all might expect. So Liv, why don't you go ahead and just say hello to everybody?
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm happy to be here with ECIC and to meet all of you. I'll be the new program manager for the Regional Child Care Coalitions, and I'm excited to dig into the work. I think I recognize some of your names from past work I've done, especially on the West Michigan side of the state in early childhood education. So I'm excited to work with all of you in a new capacity.
So welcome. Thanks for joining our office hours. I think we have a pretty good representation across regions. So I think we can go ahead and get started. I think a few housekeeping items before we dig into what is on your mind from ourselves and Holly, please feel free to jump in here with anything. We sent out an email with some possible topics yesterday. We will also be sharing with you a TA flyer just so, getting your brain going around that reminder that we are here to help you. But of course, that's your opt-in, but just some thoughts around um, ways you might use our support in this part of implementation. So we'll drop that in the chat at some point. I realize I don't have that link up right next to me, and Lindsay might not either. So we'll put that in the chat. I know there were a few updates. One thing I wanted to remind you all of is the evaluation materials that we have in the TA library. I know that AIR has some requests out for data collection now, and we have, I think, one region who has quite a bit of robust responses. I'll let Holly say more there because she can speak more directly to that. But if folks have questions about the things that AIR had sent out, I just wanted to flag that for you now. But Holly, anything else that you want to say other than please actually respond to that request?
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. I know there is a lot going on for everyone, and we're asking for a lot of things from the businesses and the educators and from all of you. With some of the timeline shifts that we've had, we still have a nice window open where we can get those evaluations responded to. Please send them back out again. It seems like Region 8 has a ton of educators, who have responded, to the individual educator one. And then we've got kind of a smattering of some of you who it's more the businesses who've responded. And so if you could please send a little reminder to everyone to urge them to complete that would be really helpful to us. Of course, we want to be collecting that data. So anyone who you're actively going to be or just recently paid your stipends, please remind them of that. And as Sarah said, I separately sent each of you the links to your specific evaluations because they are by region. And then they have the entire list with each of the links on the TA website. If you need that resent to you, or you don't know how to, I don't know, Sarah, can you guys like maybe put the link back to the TA site,
Yes.
maybe to remind folks how to access that might be a good way. I know my brain always needs to be trained to start using different sites like that. So maybe that's the best way to do it. But have there been any issues or questions around the evaluation, anyone, or anything you've heard? No, I know it probably has not been in the forefront of all your brains. We've had a lot going on. So appreciate it. And thank you for bearing with me for that reminder. I will pass it back to you, Sarah.
Yes. Oh yeah, of course. Thanks, Holly. And I'm over here. I switched my browser and realizes my organization system relied a lot on my old bookmarks. So was just trying to pull that up. But Lindsay just put it right there in the chat for you. Any other questions that folks have right away for Holly, for us, other general announcements you want to make, any big milestones around payment or applications that folks want to share before we get into problem solving?
I'll do a shout out. Um, Sarah has been incredible with working in regions 1 and 3 and 2 to get payments out between last week and this week. And she did it. So people are getting their money, they're getting
Yay.
paid. And yeah, that's Sarah and her tenacity really to get that money out there.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing, Lauren, and congrats, Sarah. Hope you had some food in the meantime, so been able to stand up. I'll take care of yourself in between. Anything else folks want to share? More you want to see on that?
I'll just piggyback on that. So for Region 2, Child Care Back Office is administering the payments for us. And so those payments, like Lauren said, are on their way to bank accounts, and we'll be paying 200 educators for the month of January between 56 programs. So super exciting. And thanks for all the work that you've done on that, Sarah and Lauren.
Yes.
I'll just add, in case anyone's noticed me like furiously typing, right before this, like as this meeting was starting, I just told Lauren my email inbox was like blowing up, and I was like, oh God, this is either really good or really bad. And it was really good. It was because all the money was like officially coming out of our account. And I was like, hell yes. So that's why it's top of mind for us.
Yay.
It was really hard to get money out. So if anyone's struggling with that, I've got thoughts and ideas for you.
Great. I'm putting that in the little temporary parking lot. And says I'd love to know if folks are dealing with that. So two things we heard. I'll say this, and then of course, if you have other questions for Holly, other kind of logistical questions, feel free. Those are, open to ask those whenever. Didn't mean to interrupt anyone's thinking, but I just was piggybacking off what Sarah said. Payments are going out. That is definitely something we know that you're dealing with and want to check in to see if things are all good there. We've also heard a little bit about provider communication. That thing that always feels like, I can't believe this is happening. We awarded this and now we're not getting a response. So wanted to hear, we had been hearing that may have been a resolved issue, but meaning that folks were having a hard time getting a hold of programs that applied and maybe having to kind of go on down the list because you weren't hearing back. So just offering that up as something that folks might want to talk about, or provider communication in general. And then we know with the um, a lot of you are still actively in fundraising. We have some questions around that because we want to develop some TA materials for fund development, fundraising, cash match. Have talked to a few of you about that already, but wanted to kind of do a quick poll for the whole group. But again, these office hours are yours. So those are just suggestions to get your mind going. But is there anything else top of mind that folks would want to start with asking each other about solutions, or just bringing up something that you're struggling with right now?
I just got off a call with Sarah because fund development is huge for me. So I appreciate that.
Yeah. Yes. And again, like anything you're feeling, if you just kind of even want to talk through what might be helpful, we're here. And this time is here for you now. Other folks on fund development, just wondering if we want to launch our poll questions and get some info there so we can develop materials that would be helpful to folks. And we know some of you are feeling like that is great. We are really confident in that area and doing great. And so we also want to flag where you all can be good resources to your peers and supporting everybody's confidence and efficacy around that work. So let's just launch the poll questions, get you warmed up here around this conversation. Do you want me? I see Lindsay working on it, so I'm not going to mess with it. Great. So you should see a little poll pop up. And thank you to Sable for getting this set up. Do folks see it? Okay.
We're getting a couple of responses. It open for another minute.
Great. So I'm seeing the responses come in. We have most folks participating. And again, if I can't see the poll, so I'm going to say this, and maybe you can. I can see the responses, but if there's something that doesn't feel like a question that you want to answer, you can skip that one. Answer what's relevant. Answer what you can. But I think we're pretty good. We might have everyone who's from a region responding. We can end it, I guess, on my end. Got it. So we see folks who haven't, which, we, I think, knew, but wanted to get your sense of maximizing the cash match, which of course fundraising doesn't only have to be about the cash match. You can continue to do so to both boost your sustainability and have more resources for your program. Seeing a lot. The majority of folks have raised money from foundations. Again, if you kind of clicked other, if you don't mind sharing other people you've successfully fundraised from in the chat, the ways you're receiving that money, or feel free to come off mute. It seems like a mix of things that have worked for people to raise funds, and it also seems like giving you some materials in hand would help you. So we'll share the results of that overall, but want to give you all a chance to see if there's anything you want to talk to each other about as far as fundraising, including if you feel like you really did a great job, with a certain funder or found something really successful. If you would share that, that would be welcome as well. Did anyone here use? Thanks, Sarah, for putting that in. You had the Community Action Agency. Is there anyone on the call who's contracting with a fund development or development kind of person, either part-time or leveraging something within your organization? Has anyone used that approach?
I was trying to swallow. So I could talk. So that's not, I didn't come off mute to talk about that. One thing that we're really looking at ways that we can create regional funders collaboratives to really look at funding needs in each county. And I think one of the elements that we were really cognizant of, that I just want to put out there, that if we were to look at this was more of a workforce strategy, and not taking away from any ECE grants that were already in place, because again, we don't want to be seen as competition. So really laying that sort of foundation as we were talking to funders about the work, and about this particular initiative. And I do want to share that I have heard from some folks, some local foundations, that they were hearing from their boards that they want to see some of the results of this boost before they jump on board. And so I think that might come up for folks, is that they want to see the impact, whether that's in 1 year or whether or not that's 6 months, I don't know, but and I think that really underscores the importance of us getting that evaluation data in a timely manner, that we could, and whether or not ECIC could help us with, some graphics or information sheets that really help with us making the case to some of these foundations about continued support or additional supports.
Thanks, Grant. Very helpful.
I was gonna say, part of our plan is to hire a contractor to do fund development related to the wage initiative, and then a little more broadly connected to other work of the coalition. We haven't done that yet. It just started a draft of the RFP yesterday, but so that will be coming, and that person also is going to be convening what we're calling a funders circle that will hopefully kind of guide a plan to make this more sustainable. So it's part of our plan, but I don't have any experience yet to report on how that's going. So stay tuned, and also open to anyone else's thoughts and ideas on how to maximize that.
Thanks, Norica. Anyone else? Great. Well, I know we have some good information just from this short amount of feedback on what would be helpful to folks. And I know we're in this period of like you've done a lot at the beginning. Sustainability is, I know always on your mind, but not exactly first the first thing you're doing right now. You're really getting your program up and running. So if things do come to mind either during this call or just in general, you can always reach out and let us know what you think would be helpful. But love the suggestion of different ways of telling the story, and some resources or assets to help you create that evidence base and show to folks how this is making a difference. On that though, I know there are things on your mind. I know, Sarah made the offer of like, is anyone struggling with literally making the payments, other kinds of things that are coming up in implementation for you right now that you have, all your peers here, other things you want to bring up?
I would love to hear from Sarah how she was able to be so successful. And kudos.
Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah. So very brief backstory. Um, we had our plan, right? I tested the plan as much as one can and was like, yeah, this is gonna work. Had used this in other ways, similar ways. Was like, yeah, this is gonna work. And then for whatever reason, we had been planning to put out our payments via QuickBooks Bill Pay. Had talked with the QuickBooks people, like, you're all set. And then like halfway through payments, they just completely froze our account and like completely kicked us out of QuickBooks. Like it was done. After a lot of time on support calls, and discovering how to get access to like the actual helpful people at QuickBooks, which I have their phone number, and it's not the one that's available online. I could give it to anybody who wants it. We were able to at least get back into our accounts and kind of see what was happening and assess. And then we made a couple of quick pivots because basically it became clear that QuickBooks is good at being an accounting software, but if you aren't aware, they are very AI driven right now. And basically what it came down to was that something about our transactions, even though every human who looks at them says like, oh yeah, this looks totally fine. Like, why would this get flagged? The AI robots did not agree. And there's no way for a human to intervene. So we're just like stuck waiting until the robots figure their shit out. But the platform that ended up working after a couple of other platform tries that were like, nope, sorry, you can't do this either, was Ramp, which I've used before for like business credit card access. They also have a bill pay option with unlimited ACH payments. So we ended up using them, and it was fairly straightforward and easy to use. I've used Ramp before for business credit cards, but not the ACH portion. But yeah, they ended up being our go-to and we may end up needing to upgrade to an actual paid plan with them. But that's something I was looking at for our organization anyways. And if I'm not paying for QuickBooks Bill Pay, I suddenly magically have some budget for this instead. So that ended up being the solution. Was we just had to keep trying other platforms until we found the one that wasn't going to interpret what we were doing as against their terms of service or some kind of fraud or something like that. So yeah, big thing we learned is that because of how we were making payments, some platforms will consider it a breach of terms of service because the people who are receiving the money or the businesses receiving the money aren't technically providing a service that we are paying them for. So even though we have like a invoice and we have bills and like we have all the documentation saying we need to put out this money, if it's not like they did this thing over these hours, various AI robots will flag it. So depending on who you're using to pay out money, keep an eye on it. Those robots are awful and wonderful, but in this case, awful. That's the short version of the story. There was a lot of cursing in the real full-length version.
Yes. Thank you for sharing that. Have others started making payments? Any other war stories to tell you? I can't, Holly, no, Holly, you have this in your head better than I do at this point. And welcome, Shanae. Shanae.
I have a war story. So we were all set. I was working with my accounting department to get payments out last week, and I got this email from Holly saying, we've run across this thing where we have individuals that may be living out of state and working in the state, and they would not be eligible. And have you verified that? And I had to put the pause brakes on everything and verify. And of course, I found one person out of one county and another person out of another county. So I did have two individuals that were not residents of Michigan and meant that they were not eligible for the stipend. So it was a good thing we paused, but it was definitely one of those last minute WTF moments because I thought I was good to go and then I wasn't good to go.
We had the same thing happen, Maria. I feel your pain.
Yeah, good catch. I almost said we had that too, but I realized every state borders another state, so it's a common. Yeah, this definitely happens.
Sarah's actually the one that caught it, so thank you. No, it's good. It was good that we caught it before payments went out. So
I think my accounting department was very excited because they were like, oh my goodness, that would have been really horrible trying to figure out how to get that money back.
yeah,
Mm.
I'm gonna point at Carrie. Carrie, you want to talk about yours? They had payments go out.
Yeah,
She
we
also
did.
had to double check everybody for
The 11th
one
hour
more.
I did. I do appreciate it. Luckily, we verified that everyone is a Michigan resident, but we do have quite our counties that border the Ohio and Indiana state lines. So, yep, we had our payments. They went out on Thursday, majority of them. I think we only had a few that the account information was wrong. So that was part of the process of re-verifying that with the providers. But it was pretty smooth. We use Bill.com for basically all of our other payments too that we use for the agency. So it was a lot of work, and our finance department worked really hard to get that going, but they did, and it was a huge relief. I will say that at the end of the day on Thursday, we were like, "Oh yeah, that was a lot," but it's exciting to know that those payments are going to be, if not already, in the hands of the educators. So.
Oh, congrats on a big first milestone. That's huge.
I can share. Sorry I'm late. I was in a finance meeting going over all of our numbers. Yeah, it was what did you call that, Maria? Those initials that you threw out there? Yeah, that.
WTF. Yeah.
I probably wouldn't generally say that except for in a but yeah, we got our first batch of payments out. We thought we were ready on Friday, and then we learned something about the new software that we had gotten, which cost us it's going to cost us like $10,000 that we didn't know that was in a budget for. But it's a way to track everything and keep everything reported and so forth and so on. So a CFO really felt like we needed to have that. And but we ran into this glitch of the way that it was like we would have to actually do everything one by one, person by person, on Friday, because when we tested, we only tested like one all the way through the ACH to go into their account. Of course, we found just like two where the accounts information was a little off. We were able to fix one, but and everybody was trying to go to work, and everybody was still talking at 6 o'clock on Friday, like we gotta get this, But I was like, you guys, we need to come back at this with fresh eyes, and I said, let's get back together. The next morning on Saturday, I was laying across my bed, talking to them, and I was thinking, I can come in and we can cut checks. This money's going out, right? And if you know finance people, they do not want to do that at all. And we run CACFP, so we know the problems with checks. People don't cash them. Then you got a whole nother problem. So, but anyways, we were able. She was able to fix it by 8 o'clock the next morning, and so those things went out on the 31st, and we were just like falling back in our beds and clapping and just really relieved, and so we're excited about that. So yeah, we still got a batch to go.
Amazing how much behind the scenes work it takes to get money out the door.
It's definitely a work.
Yes. What else is on your mind? Other payment stories, or folks have questions? I wanted to preview a few things that might spur your thinking. We're working on some resources related to tax and benefits. Hopefully they will be out very, very soon for you all, because I know now that payments are out the door, you're going to get questions about that. So expect those really soon, but also wanted to provide an opportunity if questions around that area are coming up for you all. Of course, when you get too deep, it's a lot about consulting a tax professional, but I still think knowing what's on your mind is helpful there. If that's a subject that pings some thoughts, or again, provider communication, or really anything, you have each other's time here to figure out any little or big thing on your mind about this work today.
We've done quite a bit of research. We did do one webinar already on benefits. We did that in partnership with DHHS. So they just took a scenario and ran that. It's on our website. We asked people to attest that they had seen that. I think the big takeaways in that is that, with the 70% that Michigan's data is saying are on benefits that work in childcare, so the workforce, this would be significantly relevant. What they found was of a family of 3 with the $3,600, that it would be about $78 that they would lose per month in SNAP benefits. and 40 something dollars in SNAP benefits if they were part-time. I still am not clear on the medical piece, but I've since then done some pieces. So we're about finished with our income one as well. And then, but some of the loss of money doesn't, it's because everything's at, I think it's 139% is when everything, when the cliff happens. So you could have multiple cliffs, including the food stamps, the medical. There's a lot of medical programs though. And that was what's so confusing about that particular piece. You could, the cliff on child care payments, CDC payments, and then other things like the extent to which it impacts earned income credit, and then what's outside of their privy, but we did some research on, is actually like what do you call that? The housing subsidy, Section 8.
Section 8.
So it's pretty critical that we are looking at this, and maybe in a smaller group. I'd like to have, I mean, we've done a lot of research now. So we are about finished. We've got a PowerPoint together, just sprucing it up side of it. But there are some real hits to folks. And we wanted them to know this before they said yes. We did have somebody that said no because of that, but not a lot. But I think for us to be responsible, that we've got to get that information to people because it could really hurt them. And that's real. Even if they want to go ahead and take it. I mean, we're not going to tell anybody not to take it, but I'm just saying that it has so many effects. It looks to me like, and I'll shut up after this, but my takeaway, though, I got to look at it one more time, looks to me that people need about $4 or $5 more versus in that $2, $3 range is my big takeaway.
Yeah. We've also, been doing a lot of research, have a draft calculator built, which hopefully we'll be able to share. But I'm thinking, just totally agree with you, Shanae, that it would be good. We could send out potentially a few times if folks are interested in going deep on this, because I also think once we're able to send out a few resources, we won't meet again in office hours for a while. So it might be good to just have a time where folks can go deeper on both the taxes, but really the benefits issue, I think, is one that we haven't talked about as much, is sort of where is that with the varying levels of eligibility. I know more about Michigan's eligibility levels than I ever thought I might across all these programs, and I'm sure you all do as well, from 138% all the way up to 200 and some percent. And like you said, Shanae, with the earned income tax credit, a bump can sometimes make the tax credit higher, and then, at a certain end of the curve, so, getting into the mumbo jumbo weeds, but just as a way to say, like, there is a lot, and I think benefiting from sharing knowledge across what you all are hearing or seeing would be good.
Yeah, and if you got a calculator, I know we were looking for, we looked at a couple of them, but we didn't have one that had the Michigan stuff in it. So I don't know what you found, but if you have, could you send that out pretty much immediately? Because I don't want people to get this money and then they get harmed. And so we do more harm than good.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll
we could
make
move
sure we're
on
all
to
good on that.
somebody
I
else that
actually,
could.
yeah. Oh yeah, actually use it for sure. Sorry to interrupt, Shanae. I will say I built it, so that is why there wasn't, to be Michigan specific. It is not, it's a spreadsheet, so it's really about it being directional of like, this is when to maybe check, or, it's always good to check, but just to give you all a resource to understand, different household sizes and different gross income scenarios. Anything else for folks? We don't need to keep you if you're feeling like what's on your mind is you just need time and space, but want to give opportunity. We have a few things to share though before, and while we let you. Exactly. Great point, Joan. Sustainability. Yeah, it was hard not to go. I hear that, and I really resonate with hearing you talk about your process, Shanae, because even just having build these little cells, it's sort of like, oh, it was hard not to stop and think about all the various scenarios of what would make, what's the right amount? What is what does the sustainability, how does this really impact folks? I'm going to work to put some links in the chat. One is a TA overview we created that we have a PDF of that has some links right in it. Again, not to um, be too desperate here with you all, but just to say, like, we are here and want to give you examples and free up some of your time and some thinking. So sometimes we just want, we know that's just spurring, like, what? I don't know, I don't have time to think about what help I need. I know that's definitely me when I need a thought partner, is like, well, but I don't have time to think about how I need a thought partner. And then another reminder that was sent out by Jane this morning, that you may or may not have gotten, depending on what list you're on. That was to the General Regional Child Care Coalition Peer Learning Community list, about a webinar tomorrow with our own Sarah Fogelson here on the Child Care back office work in general. So the first is that not knowing how to enter things on different lines today. The first is that TA resource. We'll send it out in follow up. But again, at the end, there are links to directly schedule or email, but just also other thinking about how you could use TA, especially in this part of your implementation and getting started. I don't know, Lindsay, Joan, am I missing anything? Or folks can certainly hang on the line if there's something you really wanted to bring up, and we'll be here, but don't want to hold those of you who might feel like, I don't need anything right now. But Barbara, I see you. Go ahead, and Tara too.
Hi. I was just wondering about, so with the Michigan Resource or Michigan Registry, when you send all your names in and they come back and they're still missing information. And, we have the 2 documents or 4 documents from my registry about, making sure that they're following these steps. But again, we sent them for a second check and they still had the same issues. So does anybody have any type of creative tool or thing that we can send to them to make sure they're doing it the correct way? Because we don't have access to that information on my registry. So we are just taking their word for it that they corrected it or they made it, they inputted it. And then when it comes back a second time, they're frustrated, we're frustrated. We're not sure, what support we can give them, because if we send it the third time and it's still not right, I mean, at some point in time, I don't know if anybody's got a good workaround with that. That's kind of one of our sticking points right now. It's just they just updating their missing wage information and verifying that their employment number and all that stuff is matching. So if anybody has any ideas.
I can suggest, if you haven't been working with your Great Search Quality Resource Center team, maybe try reaching out to them for their support. I know our team has been able to walk folks through the process, and then they can check to make sure that it's updated, because they can view my registry. So we've leaned on them really heavily for the my registry updates.
Right. No, that's a great response.
Yeah, I was just going to say, as someone who's responsible for the oversight of the Great Search Quality Resource Centers, if you encounter any challenges, please do reach out to me, because this is definitely something resource centers should be able to help you with.
Ours were really helpful as well. And then the other piece, Barbara, that we found for regions 1 and 3 was that we made people send us a screenshot after they'd done it. Which I think there are some folks, right, who are just truly genuinely struggling, and they needed the support of the resource center staff. And then there were the folks who were hoping we just weren't going to check again. And they were the ones that, when we were like, no, you have to send us a screenshot, it really helped them get along and on board. So sometimes that is helpful as well.
Jeff, were you also going to say something? Go ahead, please.
Thank you. Yeah, so just saw the invite for the webinar tomorrow. So I wanted to put Sarah on the spot and see if she could give us a rundown of what tomorrow's like. Just a quick summary, just so we know what we're walking into.
Yeah. It is not going to be all about the wage initiative. It's actually about what we were actually made to do, which is be business supports. What I found in our pilot in Region 3 in the Northeast, and how we're looking at expanding to statewide pilots in this year, and how that work is developing moving forward, and opportunities for regional coalitions to have access to those pilots and get their folks connected in so that we can all make the biggest impact and not, be duplicating anyone's work. So,
Thanks, Sarah.
yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And I just think it's so, I know we all think it is so important to sustainability of this initiative and everything for childcare businesses to be strong. That's a part of this, though not directly, a part of it. So thanks, Sarah, for that overview. Sounds super helpful.
Did we weigh in at all about who had 100% of their people in? Like all their slots or all their stipends taken? I just would like to know what that
We
is.
haven't. Yeah.
Maybe we could do that as partners. We still have some to go.
Okay.
But is there anybody that's got them all done?
Great question.
What do you mean by done?
Well, you have the amount of your money that you have allocated is now allocated to a specific person and stipends.
I have the names for everybody. I haven't allocated them. So there's a small distinction that I'm trying to make, because we haven't, until that first payment goes out, I don't necessarily call it good. But we have enough people to expend all our money and have developed waiting lists for each county.
Okay.
So as we're recruiting additional funds, so I've got a grant application that's due on Friday for one particular county for additional funds for their waiting list. And I've informed each of our county leads what their waiting list amount would be and what they would need to fundraise for. So they're currently looking at doing that. But we have enough people on the waiting list that we're going to be able to expend all our dollars.
This is really helpful, just even thinking about your strategy, and a way to fundraise related to that. So that's very helpful. Thanks, Maria.
Yeah, you're welcome. It was really important for some of our community foundations, right? Because they want to give they have to give specifically within a particular geographic area or a particular population. And so we wanted to make sure that they could contribute, but still maintain that. And so we were, part of the reason it was United Way that I actually went to for funding for Kalamazoo County that had a grant application open. And he said, I really like the fact that it's a ready-made project. It's ready to go, right? Shovel ready. So you've already got the people lined up. You've already went through the application process. You got the evaluation stuff set up. It's a pretty plug and play application, he said. So that's the plus to this for some funders. And I can guarantee that his funds will only be used in the one county.
We had thought about just community foundations, so this is really helpful, but maybe I'll just pivot offline and chat with you a little further.
Sure.
Thank you.
Maria, how much do you think the work that you've been doing over the last several years around bringing together funders in the region. And do you think that helped you ultimately? And would you recommend that other regions do more of that? I know you sort of edged towards that earlier. I just wanted to follow up.
Yeah, I mean, when we first started convening the all of the funders in our region, that was one of the pushbacks we got, right? We were trying to move them towards a shared fund or trust or some one means of being able to contribute. And that was the one roadblock that many of them had was, yes, but we all have, especially the community foundations, we have boards that expect us to go through a particular process to do it within a specific category. How could you maintain that we would still be able to achieve our goals as well? And so, yes, and that's kind of why we developed the system to be the way that it was, so that we could actually set up that for each county to fundraise specific to their county. Um, the one thing I will say, and I said this in my monitor meeting with Holly today, what we're also hearing is we've had a couple funders that said, all right, let's see what this first 6 months are going to look like, and let's see progress. Like, you're working out the kinks. Like, are we going to be able to start to see what the benefit is or the impact is? Will we get evaluation data to see, the kind of wait and see approach that some of them have? And so, I said to her earlier, I said it would be great if we were to look at ways that we can capture communication, around that.
Yeah, I know that when we were running the very tiny wage pilot, we were always trying to collect, I guess I would call it qualitative information directly from the beneficiaries, so that if we were doing presentations or we were talking about it, we were always able to talk about directly using quotes from the early educators themselves and the business owner. So, obviously, it was very, very small scale compared to what you're all doing, but I do think that's pretty important, and along with the like, are people staying, within their business? Are they staying, I guess, within the community writ large, because people are going to move, to different places for different reasons, but are they still doing care as teachers? And I'm sure they talked about other things with you, but I mean, those are some of the things that even in 3 months, you'd be able to say, I'm thinking, depending on how you looked at it, like it did make a difference compared to what was true at baseline. We're already able to see like fewer people moving or whatever those type things should be. So,
Yeah.
This is good.
Oh, and I just want to put that out there I don't know who was on the Cool Kids Club call last time, but we were talking about monitoring, and I was sharing that so we're doing our monitoring in-house, and we have a policy write-up that uh, Holly and Go ISD and MyLeap all said looked good. So I did post that in the shared folder if you want to review it and look at it. And so we're doing the monitoring ourselves, so and they're utilizing that as their monitoring as well. So it's not like a double dip, and additional impact on the provider, more work for them.
Are you speaking to a protocol on monitoring?
Yes.
Okay. That's in the share folder.
Yep.
Okay.
And if somebody hasn't been added to that, let us know, and we'll get you added.
Okay.
And Maria, I guess if you're open to it, we could put it in the TA resource library. So,
Oh, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
if you want to get ECIC, the link to that, if you're comfortable with that, it sounds like if GOISD and MyLeap have already said, yeah, that's cool, we could put it in the TA resource library and everybody could see it. So,
Yeah, I'll share it.
thank you.
And I just put a little chat. I could nerd out on this all day, but I love non-burdensome ways to collect information on the work you're doing. And if you have a long commute or you walk every day, I recommend this book, Reset by Dan Heath. It's a really easy listen or read. They just have, he outlined some really cool and creative ways places like hospitals and others have set up some frictionless data collection to really, have fun and new and interesting ways. I'm just really thinking, there's this dot between evaluation and the efficacy work and communications work, you all are doing. And as much as you can align that, like you were saying, Maria, that you all have work to do, I think that's so helpful. Yeah, this is great. We will follow up with some of these really key learnings as well as links that we put in that are still relevant. The webinar's tomorrow. So if we get this follow-up out now, we'll also include that. But great conversation. And I hope you all will continue to surface your questions with each other in a variety of ways, but also we're here at any point. So gonna wrap us up here, just looking at time. And thank you all for coming today and sharing your knowledge and questions.
Thank you.
Great, appreciate it.
Bye.